The only way man can continue to prosper is to continue to be curious. And we have plenty of curiosity. This is the Be a Great Thinker podcast, examining the world and cutting through the BS, breaking down issues, looking at them through philosophical and intellectual eyes. And now your host, author of the book with the same title, the Be a Great Thinker podcast. This is Adrian Roth.
Hello, my wonderful listeners. Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Be a Great Thinker podcast. As we all know, Thanksgiving is around the corner. That makes this a good time to reflect on what I am thankful or grateful for from this year. As you may have surmised from some of my past episodes, I can sometimes be a Debbie Downer. And it has been a challenging past couple of years, so being grateful for what you have is very necessary in order to be real about life. The first thing I am grateful for in this chaotic year is my health. This isn't to say that it has been an easy year regarding my health. Like many, I have had my issues in this regard. I don't take anything for granted, especially since we all had to deal with COVID, and some of us have lost friends and loved ones to that disaster, which still has not left us entirely and probably never will. But I am thankful that with any health issues I may have had recently, I did not have to spend my precious time chasing doctors, nor take any expensive medications, or had to go under the knife for any procedure or surgery. I really only had to take off 1 or 2 sick days this entire year. And that, alone, is something to be grateful for. I am grateful for people who have gotten their COVID vaccines and boosters and still feel the need to wear masks. I feel guilty if I am out in public with someone wearing a mask and I don't have one on. I will apologize to that person for being inconsiderate. When I do that, most people are surprised by my apology. They don't expect a person to be gracious since most people are defiant and nasty when it comes to the subject of masks and masking. But I know that if a person has a mask on, they feel it is necessary for their own personal safety, and I should be respectful of that, not combative. I am also grateful that we have made some strides in this country to at least help some people, mainly the elderly, finally have some price control on their medications. I have worked for several years with people who are on Medicare, and many of those that are on Medicare simply don't have the funds to pay for what are increasingly expensive medications. With the infrastructure bill that Congress passed earlier this year, negotiating prices with pharmaceutical manufacturers was instituted in the bill, and this was a significant change that will benefit seniors and others who are on Medicare. Now, if they could only do the same thing of stopping the price gouging for the rest of us, that would be fantastic. But I fear that won't happen anytime soon. The second thing that I am grateful for is that I am gainfully employed. Actually, I suspect several people who are listening to this podcast are also grateful for this. It has been an up and down year in this regard. The economy seems to be teetering on the brink, especially with the cost of everything rising so much and so unnecessarily. This makes us feel like we might be on the cusp of some terrible economic event. But that being said, most of us are employed, or at least, that is what the statistics say, especially when it comes to the low unemployment numbers. I have seen the battles raging with employees who are fighting against unfair labor practices, along with lousy wages and insufficient benefits. It is heartening to watch people rise up and fight for their economic rights by starting unions or walking away from jobs that offer only hassle and constant stress. People are fed up with being treated as expendable and inconsequential in the workplace. The workforce contributes to the 1%'s wealth, and more respect and consideration need to be given to the working masses. I am grateful that the tide is starting to turn in this regard. The third thing I am grateful for this year is that we have seen justice come against some very despicable people. After the January 6th insurrection, we saw many of the culprits who stormed the Capitol go on trial, with several seeing significant jail sentences. But as good as it was, seeing them get what they deserve, there are still many who have yet to be indicted and serve their equally apt sentences for being the real instigators of the insurrection. We hopefully might see justice brought to those people next year. It was also good to see justice for the cops that killed George Floyd, especially the heartless SOB Derek Chauvin. His conviction certainly has not put an end to cops killing black people. Unfortunately, this is an epidemic that just won't stop. But at least this particular bad cop will spend the rest of his life behind bars. With any luck, he will never know freedom ever again. I was thankful to see Steve Bannon finally get a jail sentence for his refusal to testify to the January 6th committee. His sentence was basically a slap on the wrist, but I have some hope this is just the beginning, and he will find himself in jail for a much longer time for all of his other crimes. But I am mainly grateful for seeing justice come for Alex Jones. That piece of shit, who spewed his vile lies about the Sandy Hook families, got several brilliant judgments against him and now is forced to pay over $1.5 billion to the victims of his lies. Though he claims they will not see a penny of that money, this will follow him for the rest of his life, and he will no longer be able to do whatever he wishes without consequence. Everything he makes will be filtered to the Sandy Hook families, and maybe, just maybe, he will lose it all and eventually disappear into obscurity where he belongs. One can only hope. And if he actually does disappear, boy, will my gratitude soar like a bird. With that, I will take a short break. When we return, I will discuss more things that I am truly thankful for from this past year.
Tired of the bull? The gaslighting? Stupid conspiracy theories? The dumbing down of the rhetoric in our society? Do you feel you are not being heard, while at the same time you are being drowned out by loud, obnoxious, uninformed, fearmongering voices? Then it's time to join our new movement and stop the insanity. Become a member of the critical thinking revolution. Tell everyone how smart, how enlightened, and how informed you really are. Show off your membership into this new revolution by purchasing Critical Thinking Revolution merch. The merch is found on our website, beagreatthinker.com. Our merch can also be purchased at our Great Thinker stores on both Etsy and on eBay. So be proud, stay strong, and be a great thinker. And together we will become a real force, being part of the critical thinking revolution.
You're listening to the Be a Great Thinker podcast. We're bringing back the art of critical thinking.
Welcome back to the Be a Great Thinker podcast. The next thing I am grateful for might perturb some of you, but it honestly is something I am truly thankful about. I work at home, and this means that I don't go out very often, so, that being said, I am very grateful that I do not have to fill up my gas tank more than once a month, or even just once every 6 weeks. Yes, I do admit that this is a bit selfish to feel this way, because I know that there are a lot of you that do not have the luxury of working from home and have felt the sting of high gas prices. You have no choice but to pay them, especially if you have to endure a long commute. This year has been challenging because of the increase in the price of just about everything. Besides the high price of gas, food is outrageously expensive. I just went to the store, hardly filled up my shopping cart, and paid almost $300. Just 1 year ago, the same stuff that I bought a couple of days ago would have been half the cost. It is hard to feel grateful when the state of the economy is the way it is right now. Your Thanksgiving dinner will cost nearly double what it did last year. Though there are many factors causing these price increases, the main culprit is greed. And the ones who are increasing the prices on everything are living fat and happy on the profits they squeeze out of the rest of us, while we struggle, barely making ends meet. I also had to scale down on my Thanksgiving dinner. It won't be as indulgent of a meal this year. Well, maybe I may lose some weight. I guess that is the bright side to the high cost of our Thanksgiving meal, as there just won't be as much to eat this year. Another thing that I am very grateful for is that my son Matthew got to experience his senior year, taking part in all of the activities that high school seniors are supposed to experience, and this included his prom and graduation. In the last 2 years, his classmates weren't so lucky. Neither of the 2 previous senior classes had a prom or a proper graduation. This was due to the COVID lockdowns, which really sucked for Matthew's upperclassmen. Matthew was a sophomore when the lockdowns happened. I felt so bad for the seniors that year. It was rough for them. It was only marginally better the following year. But thankfully, most of the restrictions were lifted by the time Matthew started his senior year, and he was able to enjoy his final year of high school. Something else, in relation to my son, that I am very grateful for, was that Matthew was able to get a full-ride scholarship to college. He worked hard to achieve this scholarship. This was such a great thing, as we both saw how other students that we knew, and their families, were struggling with paying their student loan bills. I am among the unlucky people strapped with a hefty student loan bill that I have yet to pay off. I know the misery of having that bill, so it was a real blessing for Matthew to receive the full-ride scholarship. Biden tried to help with this problem by forgiving up to $20,000 of student debt for individuals that could qualify for the help. I honestly don't think that was enough help, as it hardly touches mine or the majority of people's student loan debt, but any help is better than nothing. But of course, there were angry right-wingers who were upset by Biden's presidential order and did their damnedest to stop the loan forgiveness, thereby keeping those who needed this debt relief from getting it. Unfortunately, they succeeded at putting a temporary stop on the debt forgiveness by getting some right-wing judge to make the judgment, subsequently halting this much-needed student loan debt help. So, it is on hold for the time being, but hopefully it will be reinstated by a more reasonable jurist. When I review my student loan debt, I can see that it is not the initial debt that is the problem, but all of the interest that has been added to it. There is no reason for such high interest rates. I was among the unlucky people who got cut off from getting grants for college. This was thanks to President Reagan, who cut grants for most people in the 1980s. I only managed to qualify for one Pell Grant, while the rest were high-interest loans. I deferred payment of those loans for a long while, as I simply did not have enough money to pay back those loans, as my job prospects weren't that great after I graduated. This just increased my debt even more, thanks to those exorbitant interest rates. I don't think I will ever pay these student loans off, unless, by some miracle, I win the lottery. I am trying to do that, but, so far, not having much luck on that front. Matt will have the benefit of starting his life, not in debt. It will be great for him to not have to experience this financial burden. He may not fully realize his fortune, but someday I think he will understand how significant an advantage this is for him. Unfortunately, this year, Matthew also experienced a terrible personal tragedy. His best friend, a boy he had known since they were 5 or 6, died a few weeks after graduation. Matt's friend Owen was 18, and he had his whole life ahead of him. Owen was already in contact with his future college roommates. He was about to start an internship that he was very excited about. There was so much promise for his future. But while at home alone, Owen choked on some food. When his family came home, they found him. There was nothing they could do. By the time they arrived home, he was already gone. I could not come to terms with Owen's death. I have many fond memories of taking the boys out for different activities. Owen was an absolute pleasure to be around. Matt was very close to him, and my last best Thanksgiving was spent with Owen and his family. Any pain that I experienced over Owen's death was absolutely minor compared to what Owen's parents are going through, suffering the loss of their precious son. There are too many parents losing their children to senseless tragedies. How many school shootings, such as the terrible one at Uvalde, do we have to endure? Every time I see a parent struggling with heartbreak when their child dies for no good reason, only makes me petrified that I also may lose Matthew. I honestly don't know how I would cope if that happened. I am grateful every day that my son is still here, that I can pick up the phone and call him, that I will see him this Thanksgiving, and that I can buy him a Christmas gift. I can still make memories with him. I still have the joy of having him in my life. I am one of the lucky parents. Finally, the last thing that I am grateful for, and the one thing that I was the most worried over, was that we were able to stave off the MAGA authoritarians and keep hold of our democracy. Thankfully, enough people heeded the call to go and vote. By doing so, it prevented the predicted red wave, making it barely a trickle, and for the time being, we saved our democracy. Now, this doesn't mean the fight is over. Hardly. Instead, we are at least not barreling towards the end of our democracy, as I seriously worried we might be at this point. There is still hope that we can turn things around, but it will be a crazy 2 years of dealing with the insanity that will be coming from the House of Representatives, along with the nuttiness of the Republicans going toe-to-toe in the presidential primaries, especially now that Trump is running again for president. Trump is still a danger to this country, and I don't think we can count on Merrick Garland and the Justice Department to do the right thing and indict him on any of the multitude of crimes he has committed and still freely commits. First, we need to make sure that we vote for Warnock in Georgia to secure a more solid majority in the Senate. Next, we have to hope that with all of the stupidity that will go on in Congress over the next 2 years, that people finally wise up and see that Republicans only want chaos and have no desire to govern or do the right things for their constituents. All they care about is getting even. It isn't even about owning the libs anymore. They want to destroy liberals and take down the country, if it comes to that, just to get their way. We must also ensure that Trump never steps foot in the White House again. Whatever it takes, we have to keep him, or any Republican, from holding the office of president. DeSantis isn't any better, and neither is any of the other Republicans wanting to be president. We can't afford to have any Republicans have power in the highest office, otherwise, whatever victory we had in this election will be wiped away completely. Our democracy is still teetering, but, still, I am grateful that we bought ourselves much-needed time. It gave me a little more faith in the electorate, although too many people still voted against their welfare by voting for the Republican and MAGA candidate. Maybe when they see that the Republicans won't do anything to help them, then hopefully, they will figure out what the better option is for their lives. Well, this, in a nutshell, is what I am grateful for this Thanksgiving and this year. What things are you thankful about? What changes would you like to see in the upcoming year that will garner your gratitude for next year? There is still so much we need to accomplish, but while we do this, we all need to take a moment, catch our breath, and be very thankful for those things and for those people that are essential to our lives. I wish for all of you to have a very healthy, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you spend this special day with those you love. Please try not to have too many arguments with any combative family members. Now, if you find yourself in one of those arguments, please stop. You won't be able to change minds, and you will only end up ruining a good dinner. Instead, walk away from the potentially volatile situation and then take some time to reflect on something positive. This way you will save the dinner, your appetite, and your sanity. That, alone, is something to be grateful and thankful for on this Thanksgiving. In the meantime, if you liked this episode, please give it a shout out and give it a good review, and please share the episode and our podcast with your family and friends. Why not play it for them after you have finished your Thanksgiving dinner? Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. We will see you very soon on a new episode of the Be a Great Thinker podcast. And please don't forget to question everything.
You've been listening to the Be a Great Thinker podcast. We take deep dives and look at stories from social, the psychological, the political, the ridiculous, to the mundane. It's what we do. Celebrating ideological diversity and independent thinking. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. But in the meantime, hit the website at beagreatthinker.com, on Facebook at Be a Great Thinker, and on Etsy at Great Thinker. See you next time.